In focus today, my guest grew up in Silver City and Roswell and is the oldest of 7 children. She worked her way through college, getting help from the Regents Plus Scholarship and Pell Grants, graduating from New Mexico State University in 2002 with bachelor's degrees in chemistry and French, along with a minor in physics. She joined Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory after completing her doctorate in theoretical chemistry at UC Berkeley in 2007. I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Heather Whitley. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
So what's it like to be back in New Mexico?
It's great. I love it here. It's always a great time when I get to visit. I love coming back and visiting some of my folks and some of my favorite restaurants. So it's awesome.
And you're an Aggie, so it's great to be
I am an
on
Aggie,
campus again,
yes,
right?
and the campus is beautiful and it's grown quite a bit. And I got a lovely tour from one of the student ambassadors this morning, Sarah Ferguson. She was an awesome person to meet. I got to meet with some students over lunch today, and it's really been a pleasure.
It's always encouraging to do that. Tell me to start off with about your work at the National Laboratory, Lawrence Livermore. I'm sure a lot of people watching have heard that name before, but they probably don't know much about the type of work you do and the type of work even that occurs at that national lab.
Sure. So Lawrence Livermore is one of our national security labs. It's part of the National Nuclear Security Administration within the Department of Energy. So along those lines, it's a similar lab to Los Alamos National Lab in terms of its mission scope. The lab was founded in 1952 by some folks who had actually worked at Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project. Mm-hmm. So there were some concepts that we wanted to develop, and another lab was founded by Edward Teller in Livermore to pursue those goals. So our primary mission is in national security. We work on a variety of different topics ranging from nuclear weapons to cybersecurity, bioengineering, nuclear forensics, and detection of what other countries might be doing if they were testing devices, for example. My particular work, I design laser experiments that are performed to help support stockpile stewardship. So as you know, nuclear testing was brought to an end by the United States in the late 1990s. And so part of our job as scientists is to make sure that we have the technological knowledge and expertise and that we understand what's happening within our weapon systems without actually testing them, so that we can continue to provide a reliable and safe deterrent for the country.
Yeah, so very important work, but also work you can't talk about in too much of a specific way because we're talking about national security.
That's right. There are parts of my work that I cannot talk about. There are parts of my work that I can talk about. We do, as part of our national security mission, we do a lot of basic material science in order to understand the behaviors of materials under conditions that are relevant to different national security applications. So part of what we do is laser experiments to understand the dynamic properties of materials. We do theoretical calculations to understand the properties of materials, and that's where most of my focus is actually in basic material science. The expertise and the skills that we develop in our open scientific work can then be applied to applications that we don't necessarily
so
talk
outside
about.
the Defense Department.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's very important. Tell me about the decision to pursue federal service.
So coming out of graduate school, I had worked on the effects of superfluid helium on molecular spectra, and all the time when I was in graduate school, I had questions from my grandparents wanting to know, number one, when are you ever going to be done with school? Because it seemed
I've heard
like
that before.
Yeah, it seemed like I'd been in school for an awfully long time. And number two, what is that for? Why are you doing that? And the answer was mostly academic. There are some interesting applications of that research, And I still think it was a very interesting topic, but it wasn't particularly applicable to day-to-day life. So coming out of that very academic research environment, I wanted to do something that had a little bit more of, say, day-to-day impact. So I actually applied for the postdoc position at Livermore and was hired straight out of graduate school. And my first project was in working on materials for solar cells. So that was really cool and exciting, and supporting, renewable energy research and development. And that was something that I could very tangibly tell my grandfather that I was doing, so I appreciated that. That applied science aspect of the National Lab was what initially drew me there.
Yeah. I bet you enjoy talking about this because of the fact that we hear so very often about the need to encourage more young people to get into the STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yes, that's right. So when I was in school, I feel like our high school was doing a great job of promoting the STEM fields, and I think that was an initiative that was taking place all over the state of New Mexico. I was involved in a club called the Math Engineering Science Achievement Club, or MESA, and this is a club that just this morning I heard Sarah, the student ambassador, mention she had been involved in that, so it's still happening. But it encourages students to basically have STEM as a hobby and one of our extracurricular activities in school. So I did that, and I felt like it was great. And from my graduating class, several of us went on to do PhDs in chemistry and in physical sciences. So I think that I feel like there was a thrust even within my high school to do STEM. I feel like it's enriched my life a lot. I think that it's an exciting field to be in, and seeing some of the data science developments and quantum computing and things of that nature that are on the forefront of scientific research. It's just a great time to be a scientist.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned MESA, because I've heard of that many times when I interview local high school students here, because we have a program we honor. It's called the Las Cruces Mayor's Top Teens, and we air the segments regularly. Folks who watch our station are familiar with them. And it's mentioned all the time. That's a structural thing. So you're saying that you felt like a lot of schools in New Mexico for a long time have encouraged this. We see other structural things like robotics competitions here at the university, opportunities to bring K-12 students to the university, get them thinking about college very early on. But I wonder, beyond the structural things, were there also individual teachers that really encouraged you as well?
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. So when I was in 8th grade, I actually had a math teacher, Mr. Fitzsimmons in Roswell at Mountain View Middle School, and he's been retired for a number of years now, so you can't find him there now. He encouraged me very, very strongly to participate in math counts and in a number of other math competitions that were going on. Up to that point, I'd always gotten good grades, and my parents knew I was capable of getting straight A's, so if I didn't come home with straight A's, I actually was, in trouble. So over time, my parents had always encouraged me to keep my grades up, but being somewhat introverted, I never really wanted to put myself out there in terms of a spelling bee or a competition of any sort. I just kind of wanted to sit back and not be in the spotlight. Well, Mr. Fitzsimmons sort of coerced me into participating in some of these more competitive math events that were taking place, and I actually did really, really well. And our team got to go to the state competition in Albuquerque for math counts, and that was super exciting and it was the first time I had been on a college campus other than to go to the swimming pool, or actually I take that back. I was on the Western New Mexico University campus with my mom as a kid, so I forgot that we would visit that campus sometimes when I was a kid, so I do take that back. But that was a great experience. And what I learned in doing math counts was that I was actually better at math than I thought, and that it was actually something that was unique to be as good at math as I am. The other thing that came out of math counts and these math competitions was that I started getting mail from some of the local universities. So the first university I remember hearing from was actually New Mexico State. It was the Department of Astronomy. And they sent me a pamphlet and they sent me information and, congratulations on your stellar performance. Here's some information about our department. And that was when I realized that if I continued to do well in school, I might be able to go to college. And that was what really kind of sparked an interest in STEM for me.
Yeah. So how important were scholarships to you? I mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah. 100%. So my focus, once I started getting that mail in 8th grade from the local universities, my focus through high school was 100% on keeping my grades up and making sure that I got a scholarship to go to college. Being the oldest of 7 kids, you can imagine that in our household, resources might have been somewhat limited. So I was really not counting on any kind of support coming from my family financially. Obviously, my family was incredibly supportive of me going to college, but I wasn't counting on financial support. So it was paramount to me to get a scholarship in order to go to school. I wouldn't have been able to afford it otherwise. And this was at the time when the lottery scholarship was relatively new. I started college at NMSU in 1998. So I saw the lottery scholarship then was paying for part of my scholarship through the Regents Plus scholarship that I had then at the time. And I saw a number of other students who were coming in and working very hard to make sure that they made the GPA cutoff during their first semester so that they would start getting the lottery scholarship in the spring. And that was one area where I saw I think the state made a great investment in its future and in the future of so many of us who were coming from New Mexico and attending the local schools.
And I bring it up in part because the lottery scholarship has dropped significantly in recent times, down to now about 60% of tuition. It was just a short time ago 90%, so a big drop. And it's important that folks understand that this is very important for our students and for the opportunity to succeed.
That's absolutely 100% true. And I think I know a number of other people who probably would not have been able to attend school, or it would have been a much more substantial burden for them if they hadn't had the availability of that scholarship at the time when I was here.
Yeah. What other advice would you give to young people who might be watching this today, or their parents who are watching it, who might be thinking about a path like yours?
The number one thing I would say is to be confident in yourself. It's something that I still struggle with today, and it's not an uncommon feature for many of us who come from sort of a different background, maybe where there's economic challenges, to sometimes lack confidence in settings that are new to us. So the number one thing I would say is, if someone tells you that you're doing a good job at something, realize that you're actually doing a good job, and put the doubts out of your mind, as strong as they may be, and have some confidence and move forward. Set your sights on your goals and keep going for that. And don't let the setbacks take you down. We all experience setbacks in life. Even the person who looks like they have everything has setbacks. And part of life is just learning how to ride those waves as they come along, and keep your boat afloat and keep going.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
I needed that pep talk today too.
Well, great.
I've hit some bumps along the way. We all do, as you said.
We do, yes.
Dr. Heather Whitley, what a delight to talk with you. I hope you'll come back again.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in Focus.